The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark space between stars. Inside its giant halls, beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting of the year. The station was so big that small ships could fly through its corridors. Its metal walls gleamed under bright lights that never went out. Commander Jake Morrison sat at a long table made of some kind of blue crystal. Around him were creatures that looked nothing like humans. The Zephyrians looked like giant lizards, walking on two legs. Their scales were dark green and their eyes glowed red in the dim light. The Vortani had forearms and heads that looked like triangles. They spoke in clicking sounds that came through small machines that turned their words into something humans could understand. The oldest beings at the table were the Keltharians. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before. Humans even learned to make fire. Their skin was gray and wrinkled and they moved very slowly, but everyone knew they were the smartest fighters in the galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez stood up to speak. She was a small woman with dark hair, but she spoke with a strong voice that filled the room. In her hands, she held a data pad that glowed with information about human military forces. "The human race wants to join your military groups," she said. "We have fought many wars on our home planet. We know how to fight and we know how to win." The Zephyrian war chief made a sound like a growl. His name was something humans could not say, so they called him Red Eye. He was bigger than 3 humans put together and his claws could cut through metal. "Your people are weak," Red Eye said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "You come from a small world that no one cares about. You have no real weapons. You have no real armies. Why should we let you fight beside us?" Captain Ryan Blake had been quiet until now. He was an old soldier with scars on his face and gray hair. He had fought in the war on Titan, one of the moons around Saturn. Many good people died in that war, but Ryan survived because he was smart and tough. "We might not look strong," Ryan said, "but we have beaten every enemy we have ever fought. We have never lost a war that really mattered." The Vortani strategist made clicking sounds that the machine turned into laughter. The Vortani was called Forearms by the humans, though that was not its real name. "You fight other humans," Forearms said. "That means nothing. Humans think in simple ways. You cannot understand how real aliens fight. You cannot understand how we think." The Keltharian elder had not spoken yet. It was so old that no one knew exactly how many years it had lived. Some people said it was over 1,000 years old. When it finally spoke, everyone listened. "The young race from Earth shows courage by coming here," the elder said in a voice like wind through dry leaves. "But courage alone does not win wars. They have no experience fighting beings from other worlds. They do not know the ways of space combat. They would be destroyed in their first real battle." Lisa tried to speak again, but Red Eye stood up. "When a Zephyrian stands up, it looks like a mountain rising from the ground." "We have decided," Red Eye announced. "Humans can carry supplies. Humans can fix broken ships. Humans can cook food and clean floors. But humans cannot fight real battles. That is for real warriors." The other aliens made sounds of agreement. Even the Keltharian elder nodded its ancient head. The meeting was over before it really began. Jake Morrison felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. These aliens had no idea what humans could really do. They saw humans as soft and weak because humans tried to solve problems with words before using weapons. They thought this made humans cowards. "Is that your final decision?" Jake asked. "Yes," said Forearms. "You may serve in support roles only. You will not be given real weapons or real missions. This is for your own safety." Lisa packed up her datapad and documents. Ryan Blake stood up slowly, his old bones making quiet popping sounds. Jake gathered his papers and prepared to leave. As they walked toward the exit, Jake heard the aliens talking among themselves. They were laughing about the humans who thought they could be soldiers. Red Eye said something about soft bipeds who probably cry when they get hurt. Forearms wondered if humans would run away at the first sign of danger. The 3 humans walked through the long corridors of Nexus Prime without speaking. They passed by windows that showed the black space outside. In the distance, they could see their own ship, the Liberty, waiting to take them home. But they were not alone in the corridors. Admiral Kate Sullivan had been watching the meeting through hidden cameras. She was the commander of the human fleet that waited at the edge of the star system. Her ship, the Constitution, was bigger and stronger than anything humans had ever built before. Kate had gray hair and blue eyes that seemed to see everything. She had been a soldier longer than anyone else in the human fleet. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on Mars. She knew things about war that these aliens could not imagine. When Jake, Lisa, and Ryan reached their ship, they found Kate waiting for them. "I saw what happened in there," Kate said. "They think we are weak." "They made that very clear," Lisa replied. She looked tired and disappointed. "Good," Kate said, which surprised everyone. "Let them think that. Let them believe we are just soft creatures who cannot fight." Ryan looked at the Admiral with curiosity. "What are you thinking, Kate?" Kate looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Somewhere out there, dangers were moving in the dark spaces between worlds. Wars were coming that would test every living being in the galaxy. "I am thinking that no one has ever been more wrong about anything," Kate said. "And when the time comes, they will learn what humans are really capable of. They will learn why no enemy has ever survived a real battle with us." The Liberty left Nexus Prime and headed back toward Earth. Behind them, the aliens continued their meeting, planning for wars they thought they understood. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. In the vast darkness of space, something else was moving. Something that would soon test every assumption about warfare and survival. The aliens thought they knew who the real warriors were. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. 3 months had passed since the humans were rejected by the Galactic Council. Captain Alex Turner was on patrol duty in his reconnaissance ship called the Meridian. It was a small, fast ship designed to scout ahead of the main fleet and report back what it found. Alex was a young captain with brown hair and sharp eyes. He had grown up on a space station orbiting Jupiter, so he was comfortable living among the stars. His crew was small but experienced. They had been flying together for 2 years and knew each other well. The ship's communication system suddenly came alive with noise. Dozens of distress signals were flooding in from all directions. The signals were weak and broken, as if they were coming from very far away. "Captain," called Communications Officer Danny Wright from his station. Danny was barely 25 years old, but he was the best at understanding alien languages that anyone had ever seen. "I am getting emergency calls from the Outer Rim colonies. Something terrible is happening out there." Alex walked over to look at Danny's screen. The messages were coming in different alien languages, but they all said the same thing. "Help, emergency, under attack, all dying. Set course for the nearest colony," Alex ordered. "Maximum speed." Engineer Samantha Cole looked up from her station. Sam was a tall woman with red hair who could fix anything that broke on a spaceship. She had been working on the engines when the distress call started coming in. "Captain, that is 3 days away at full speed," Sam said. "By the time we get there, whatever is happening will be over." "Then we will see what is left," Alex replied, "and maybe we can help any survivors." The Meridian jumped into hyperspace, traveling faster than light toward the Outer Rim. During the long journey, more distress calls came in. Then, one by one, the calls stopped. The silence was worse than the screaming. When they finally arrived, at the first colony, Alex could not believe what he saw. The planet Zephyria 7 had been home to 50 million Zephyrian civilians. It was supposed to be a green world, with cities and farms and schools for young Zephyrians to learn in. Instead, Alex saw a ball of gray rock floating in space. There was no green anywhere. There were no cities, no farms, no schools. There was nothing alive at all. "My God," whispered Danny. "What happened here?" Sam ran her scanners over the dead planet. "There is no organic material left," she reported. "No plants, no animals, no people. Even the bacteria in the soil is gone. It is like someone sucked all the life out of this world." They found pieces of Zephyrian warships floating in space around the planet. These were not small ships. Zephyrian battlecruisers were some of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Their shields could stop almost any attack. Their weapons could destroy entire cities. But the pieces floating in space showed that the shields had done nothing. The metal was twisted and melted in ways that Sam had never seen before. It looked like something had eaten the ships from the inside out. "Captain," Danny called out. His voice was shaking. "I am picking up a recording from one of the ship fragments. It is the final message from the battlecruiser Thunder of Zephyr." "Play it," Alex said. The voice that came through the speakers was terrified. It belonged to a Zephyrian captain who was watching his world die. "This is Captain Rax of the Thunder of Zephyr. The enemy is unlike anything we have ever seen. Our weapons have no effect. They seem to learn from every attack we make. They adapt to our shields. They counter our tactics before we can even use them. They are not just destroying us, they are consuming us. Everything we are, everything we know, they take it and make it part of themselves. The planet is gone. My ship is dying. If anyone receives this message, run. Run as far as you can and never come back." The message ended with the sound of metal tearing apart. The Meridian visited 4 more colony worlds. They found the same thing every time. Dead planets, destroyed fleets, no survivors. Whatever was doing this was moving through the galaxy like a plague, leaving nothing alive behind it. On the 5th world, they finally saw the enemy. The creatures were enormous, bigger than the largest human battleships. They looked like they were part machine and part living thing. Their skin was black metal, but it moved and flowed like liquid. They had no fixed shape. They could change their bodies to become whatever they needed to be. Alex watched through his ship's cameras as the creatures stripped the last bits of life from a Keltharian fortress world. The Keltharians had built massive defensive stations that were supposed to be impossible to destroy. The creatures simply flowed around the defenses like water and ate them from within. "They learn," Sam said in amazement. "Watch how they move. The first one attacks the defense station and gets hurt by the energy weapons. But the second one changes its skin to absorb the energy instead of being harmed by it." Danny had been listening to alien communications from across the galaxy. "The survivors are calling them harvesters," he said. "They harvest everything. Technology, knowledge, even the genetic information of every living thing they encounter." Alex realized the true horror of what they were seeing. These harvesters were not just destroying civilizations. They were learning from them. Every battle made them smarter. Every victory taught them new ways to kill. "How do you fight an enemy that learns from every attack?" Sam asked. "You do not," Alex said grimly. "You run, and you hope they do not follow you." The Meridian raced back toward the core systems of the galaxy, carrying the worst news in galactic history. Behind them, the harvesters continued their advance, growing stronger with every world they consumed. Alex sent his report to Galactic Command and to the human fleet. The message was simple but terrifying. Conventional warfare is useless against this enemy. They adapt to everything. They learn from everything. They cannot be stopped by any military force we know of. But even as Alex sent his warning, he did not know that Admiral Kate Sullivan was reading his report with great interest. The old human admiral was not thinking about running. She was thinking about something the other species had never considered. What if the secret to beating an enemy that learns everything is to become an enemy that can never be learned from? The harvesters were coming, and they had never faced anything like humanity before. Fleet Admiral Vextar had once been the proudest warrior in the Zephyrian Empire. His scales were decorated with scars from 100 battles. His claws had torn apart the hulls of enemy ships. His tactical genius had won wars that everyone else said could not be won. Now he stood in the emergency session of the Galactic Council and his pride was broken. 17 fleets, Vextar said in a voice that sounded like defeat. "I sent 17 full battle fleets against the harvesters, ships with the most advanced weapons in Zephyrian space. Crews trained from birth to fight and die for the Empire." Council chamber was darker than usual. Half of the representatives were not there anymore. Their worlds had been consumed, their species scattered to the winds or simply gone forever. "What happened to your fleets?" asked the Keltharian elder. The ancient being looked even older now, as if the weight of the galaxy's doom was pressing down on its shoulders. They learned, Vexitar said. The harvesters learned everything. My first fleet attacked with plasma cannons. The harvesters adapted and became immune to plasma. My second fleet used kinetic missiles. The harvesters grew armor that stopped every missile. My third fleet tried energy torpedoes. The harvesters absorbed the energy and became stronger. Vexitar looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had once seemed so confident and powerful. Now they all looked scared. By the time I sent my 17th fleet, the harvesters knew every Zephyrian tactic that had ever been used. They countered our attacks before we made them. They knew where we would be before we knew it ourselves. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Dr. Elena Foster stood up to speak. She was a human scientist who studied alien life forms. She had been working day and night to understand the harvesters since the attacks began. Elena was a small woman, with blonde hair and glasses that made her eyes look bigger. She spoke quietly, but everyone listened because she was one of the smartest people in the galaxy. The harvesters are perfect predators, Elena explained. They have been traveling through space for millions of years, consuming entire galaxies. They have a collective intelligence that shares information instantly across their entire species. She activated a hologram that showed the structure of a harvester creature. The image rotated slowly, showing the complex network of organic and mechanical systems inside. Every battle teaches them something new. Every weapon used against them becomes useless. Every tactic becomes predictable. They are designed to adapt to any threat and overcome it. The Vortani Chancellor spoke up. Forearms had been running computer simulations since the crisis began, trying to find some way to win. Our calculations show that we have a 2.7% chance of survival, Forearms announced. The harvesters will consume the entire galaxy within 18 standard months. All life will be extinct. All civilizations will be forgotten. The silence that followed was the silence of despair. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were helpless against an enemy that learned from everything they did. The Keltharian elder spoke in a voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear it. There is one option we have not considered, the elder said. What option? Demanded Vexitar. We have tried everything. Not everything, the elder replied. We have not asked the humans for help. The chamber erupted in sounds of anger and disbelief. Aliens clicked, growled, and hissed their objections. The idea that humans could succeed where they had failed seemed impossible. The humans? Vexitar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. The soft bipeds who we would not even allow to carry supplies, how could they possibly help us? Because, the elder said patiently, they are the only species that has not fought the harvesters yet. The harvesters have not learned human tactics. They do not know how humans think. Forearms made clicking sounds of disagreement. Human thinking is simple and predictable. The harvesters will adapt to human tactics in minutes. Will they? The elder asked. How can you be sure? What do any of us really know about how humans fight? Dr. Elena Foster had been quiet during this argument, but now she spoke up. Actually, Elena said, human military thinking is very strange. I have been studying their history. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not follow logical patterns. They do things that make no sense from a tactical standpoint, but somehow they win. She brought up new holograms showing human battles throughout history. Look at this battle from their Second World War. The humans landed on a beach that was heavily defended by their enemies. Any logical species would have attacked somewhere else. But the humans attacked the strongest point anyway, and they won. She showed another image. Here is a battle from their American Civil War. One human general was outnumbered 3-1, but instead of retreating, he split his forces and attacked in multiple directions at once. It should have been suicide. Instead, he won the battle. And here, Elena continued, is a space battle from their Titan rebellion. The human commander was facing superior alien technology. Instead of using advanced tactics, he rammed his ship directly into the enemy flagship. Both ships were destroyed, but the humans won the war. The alien leaders looked at these examples with confusion and worry. This was not how civilized beings were supposed to fight. This was chaos. You see? Elena said. Humans do not think like us. They do not fight like us. Maybe that is exactly what we need. The debate continued for hours. But in the end, desperation won. The Galactic Council had no choice. Every conventional strategy had failed. Every logical approach had been countered by the Harvesters. With great reluctance, the Council voted to request human military assistance. Colonel Nathan Gray was the human representative who received the formal request. He was a middle-aged man with brown hair that was starting to turn gray at the temples. His face showed the lines that came from making difficult decisions in dangerous situations. So, Nathan said after reading the request, now you want our help. We are desperate, the Keltharian elder admitted. We will give you full command of all remaining military forces. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. But it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been underestimated. You should know, Nathan said, that humans do not fight the way you expect. Our methods might disturb you. We do not always follow the rules of civilized warfare. We are beyond caring about rules, Vextar said. Just tell us you can stop them. Nathan stood up and looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of the alien representatives. We can stop them, he said with quiet confidence. But you need to understand something about humans. We do not just fight to win battles. We fight to make sure our enemies never get the chance to fight us again. What does that mean? Forearms asked. Nathan's smile grew wider and more dangerous. It means, he said, that no enemy has ever survived a battle with humans, and the Harvesters are about to find out why. Commander Ashley Parker stood on the bridge of the human cruiser Defiance, looking at the tactical display that showed the mining world of Kepler 442b. The planet was surrounded by a swarm of harvester ships, black biomechanical creatures that moved through space like living shadows. Ashley was 32 years old with short black hair and green eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She had been chosen to lead the first human operation against the Harvesters because she was known for thinking in ways that even other humans found confusing. Around Kepler 442b, a mixed fleet of alien ships waited nervously. Zephyrian battle, cruisers with their red armor and plasma cannons, Vortani stealth ships that could become invisible, Keltharian fortress ships with shields so strong they could survive the explosion of a star. The alien commanders were watching through communication, links expecting to see humanity's first and last battle against the Harvesters. All ships, this is Commander Parker, Ashley said into her communications device. Begin Operation Confusion. Fleet Admiral Vextar, watching from his command ship, made a growling sound of disbelief. Operation Confusion? What kind of military operation has a name like that? Lieutenant Commander Tony Martinez, Ashley's second-in-command, began giving orders to the human ships. Tony was a young man with brown skin and a quick smile who had grown up in the asteroid mines between Mars and Jupiter. First Squadron, attack. The empty space 3 kilometers to the left of the Harvester formation, Tony ordered. Second Squadron, fire all weapons at the small asteroids near the planet's moon. Third Squadron, retreat immediately to the far side of the system. The alien observers watched in horror as the humans seemed to lose their minds. They were shooting at nothing. They were running away from battles that had not started. They were attacking asteroids that had no military value at all. Have they gone insane? Forearms clicked frantically. They are not even fighting the enemy. But Sergeant Kelly Johnson, leading the human ground forces, was already explaining the plan to her troops. Kelly was a tough woman from the mining colonies of Titan, who had fought in 3 different wars before she was 25. Listen up, people, Kelly said to her soldiers as their ships approached the planet. We are not here to win a normal battle. We are here to confuse the hell out of these things. Her soldiers were carrying equipment that made no sense to anyone watching. Some had weapons that fired backwards. Others had devices that did nothing but make loud noises. A few were carrying what appeared to be children's toys from Earth. The Harvesters learn from everything they see, Kelly explained. So we are going to show them things that will break their learning systems. On the surface of Kepler 442b, the human ground forces began the strangest military operation in galactic history. They built bases in the worst possible locations. They dug trenches that went nowhere. They set up defensive positions that defended nothing. Major Chris Anderson was in charge of the most important part of the operation. Chris was a military strategist who had studied every battle in human history, from ancient Rome to the wars in space. The key, Chris explained to his confused alien observers, is that we are not trying to win this battle with tactics or firepower. We are trying to win by being impossible to understand. Chris had a device in his hands that looked like a small cube with blinking lights. It was actually a quantum randomness generator, a machine that used the uncertainty principle of physics to make completely unpredictable choices. "Computer," Chris said to the device, "choose our next battle plan." The device blinked and made a small beeping sound. Then it displayed a message. "Attack pattern, banana split with extra confusion." Chris nodded as if this made perfect sense. "All units, implement banana split formation. Random weapons fire on random targets. Change tactics every 30 seconds based on coin flips." The battle that followed was unlike anything that had ever happened in the galaxy. Human ships attacked in patterns that seemed to have no pattern at all. They would charge directly at harvester formations, then suddenly stop and start flying in circles. They would fire their most powerful weapons at empty space, then attack with children's water guns. Captain Rachel Thompson was piloting a fighter ship called the Wildcard. Rachel was known throughout the human fleet for her ability to make decisions that no sane person would make. "Control, this is Wildcard," Rachel said into her radio. "I am about to attack the biggest harvester ship using a battle plan I just made up by flipping a coin." "What did the coin tell you to do?" asked Tony Martinez. "Heads means I fly straight at them with my engines turned off. Tails means I attack them while flying backwards and playing classical music." "What did you get?" "Tails," Rachel said cheerfully. "Here I go." Rachel turned her ship around so it was flying backwards toward the massive harvester vessel. She turned off her weapon systems and instead began broadcasting Earth's classical music at maximum volume. The 1812 overture echoed across space as she flew directly into the enemy formation. The harvester ships tried to analyze this attack pattern. Their computers worked frantically to understand the tactical purpose of flying backwards while playing music. They had never encountered anything like this in millions of years of conquest. While the harvesters were trying to figure out what Rachel was doing, she suddenly spun her ship around and fired a single missile at the exact weak point in the enemy flagship's armor. The missile hit perfectly, causing the entire ship to explode. "How did you know where to aim?" Tony asked in amazement. "I did not," Rachel admitted. "I just fired at whatever looked interesting." Across the battlefield, the same pattern was repeating. Harvesters that had adapted to counter every known form of warfare were being destroyed by tactics that made no sense at all. Dr. Elena Foster, watching from her research ship, was recording everything with excitement. "Incredible," Elena said. "The harvesters' adaptive systems are designed to learn from logical patterns, but humans are not using logical patterns. They are using pure chaos." She pointed to her screens, which showed harvester bioships spinning in confused circles. "Look at this. The harvesters are trying to adapt to human tactics, but there are no tactics to adapt to. Every human action is different from the last one. The harvesters' learning systems are overloading." As the battle continued, something unprecedented happened. The harvesters began making mistakes. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated started flying into each other. Weapons that had never missed began firing at their own forces. Major Chris Anderson watched the chaos with satisfaction. "Computer, what should we do next?" The quantum device beeped. "Tactical recommendation. Dance like no one is watching. All units," Chris announced, "begin evasive pattern dancing queen. Spin randomly while firing in all directions. Remember, if it makes sense, you are doing it wrong." The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human fleet began spinning and twirling through space like some kind of cosmic ballet. Weapons fired in every direction. Ships flew in patterns that defied all military logic. And the harvesters, for the first time in their existence, were losing. One by one, the great bioships began to shut down. Their adaptive systems, pushed beyond all limits by the impossibility, of human behavior simply gave up trying to understand what they were seeing. When the last harvester ship exploded, the human fleet stopped dancing and regrouped in formation. "All units, this is Commander Parker," Ashley said calmly. "Mission accomplished. Kepler 442b is secure." The silence on the alien communication channels lasted for a full minute. Finally, Fleet Admiral Vextar spoke. "How?" he asked in a voice full of wonder and fear. "How did you defeat an enemy that has never been defeated?" Ashley Parker smiled as she looked out at the space where the Harvester fleet had been. "Simple," she said. "We did not fight them like warriors. We fought them like humans." News of the victory at Kepler 442b spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time since the Harvester invasion began, beings everywhere felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. General Marcus Stevens stood in the command center of the massive human battleship Enterprise, studying a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed systems still controlled by the Harvesters. Blue dots showed systems that had been liberated by human forces. Marcus was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, but now those eyes burned with determination. 17 Harvester-occupied systems, Marcus said to his staff. 17 different battles happening at the same time, and we are going to win all of them. His aide, a young officer named Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, looked worried. Sarah had blonde hair and was fresh out of the academy, still learning how humans really fought wars. "Sir, fighting 17 battles at once seems impossible," Sarah said. "Even if we win some of them, we will lose others. The Harvesters will learn from our victories and use that knowledge against us in the battles we lose." Marcus smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made enemies nervous. "That is exactly what they expect," he said. "But we are not going to fight 17 similar battles. We are going to fight 17 completely different wars." Operation Mayhem began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 different star systems, human commanders launched attacks that had nothing in common with each other, except that they made no sense to anyone watching. Commander Victoria Hayes led the assault on the industrial world of Vortani, Prime. Victoria was known for her studies of military history, but today she was trying something that no military academy had ever taught. "All units, this is Commander Hayes," she announced to her fleet. "Today we fight like ancient Earth Vikings. Charge directly at the enemy while screaming battle cries. Use ramming attacks. Fight like our ancestors did 1,000 years ago." The Harvester defenders of Vortani Prime had adapted to expect advanced space tactics. They were prepared for energy weapons, missile attacks, and complex formations. They were not prepared for human ships to charge at them head-on while broadcasting recordings of ancient Viking war songs. At the same time, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Luke Mitchell was taking a completely different approach to liberating the scientific colony of Keltharia 9. Luke was a quiet man who had studied artificial intelligence and computer programming before becoming a military officer. For this battle, he had created something that terrified even his own crew. "Computer, activate Tactical Intelligence Madman 7, Luke ordered. Madman 7 was an artificial intelligence that had been programmed to think like someone with severe mental illness. It made decisions based on paranoid delusions, random phobias, and completely irrational fears. "Madman 7 online," the computer announced in a voice that sounded worried and confused. "The enemy ships look like giant spiders. I do not like spiders. We should attack them by pretending to be invisible and singing lullabies." Luke nodded as if this made perfect sense. "All ships, follow Madman 7's tactical recommendations. Begin invisible singing attack pattern." The human fleet began broadcasting children's lullabies while performing evasive maneuvers that seemed designed to hide from an enemy that could clearly see them. The Harvester forces tried desperately to understand the tactical purpose of this behavior. While Luke's fleet sang lullabies and Victoria's ship screamed Viking war cries, 15 other human commanders were implementing battle plans that were equally insane and equally effective. Dr. Ian Cooper was leading the liberation of the trading post at Nexus 4, using a strategy based on ancient Earth board games. Ian was a military scientist who collected old games as a hobby. Today his fleet was moving like chess pieces, while his ground forces advanced according to the rules of checkers. Captain Amanda Foster was attacking the Harvester stronghold at Zephyria 12, using tactics inspired by Earth sports. Her ships moved in football formations while her fighters performed basketball plays. The Harvesters had never seen military units try to score touchdowns during a space battle. On the mining world of Asteroid X7, Major Robert Clark was implementing what he called backwards day. His forces were doing everything in reverse. They retreated toward the enemy and advanced away from them. They fired their weapons before aiming and surrendered before the battle started. Somehow, this was working. The most successful operation was being led by Commander Victoria Hayes, who had discovered something terrifying about the Harvesters' adaptive abilities. "Dr. Foster," Victoria called to her science officer, "I need you to do something that sounds crazy." Dr. Ian Cooper's twin brother, Dr. James Cooper, was serving as Victoria's science officer. James had been studying the Harvesters since the invasion began. "What do you need, Commander?" James asked. "I want you to deliberately let a small Harvester force escape from our attack. Let them adapt to our Viking tactics. Then share the adapted Harvesters with Captain Mitchell's fleet." James looked confused. "But if they adapt to our tactics, they will be harder to defeat." "Exactly," Victoria said with a dangerous smile. "But they will have adapted to Viking tactics. What happens when they face an enemy using insane artificial intelligence tactics?" The experiment worked perfectly. The Harvesters that had adapted to counter Viking-style ramming attacks were completely helpless against Luke's fleet of ships that were pretending to be invisible while singing lullabies. The adapted Harvesters had specialized their defenses against straightforward attacks. They could not handle an enemy that was hiding in plain sight while using children's songs as psychological warfare. "Incredible," reported Dr. Elena Foster from her research vessel. Elena had been studying the Harvesters' adaptive processes throughout the campaign. "The Harvesters are over-adapting. They are becoming so specialized to counter specific tactics that they become vulnerable to everything else." This discovery led to the development of evolutionary warfare. Human commanders began deliberately exposing small Harvester groups to one type of tactic, then sharing those adapted enemies with other human fleets using completely different approaches. Soon, Harvesters that had adapted to defend against ancient Roman military formations were being destroyed by fleets using modern dance choreography as tactical guidance. Enemies that had learned to counter spacefighter tactics based on Earth insect behavior were helpless against attacks inspired by professional cooking techniques. The alien observers, watching from their command ships, struggled to understand what they were seeing. "They are teaching the Harvesters to be weak," forearms clicked in amazement. "The humans are using the enemy's greatest strength against them." Fleet Admiral Vextar watched as system after system was liberated by human forces using tactics that seemed to come from a fever dream. "I have fought wars for 300 years, Vextar said in a voice full of wonder. "I have never seen anything like this. They do not just defeat their enemies, they make their enemies defeat themselves." By the end of Operation Mayhem, 16 of the 17 target systems had been liberated. The 17th system was abandoned by the Harvesters, who simply fled rather than face another impossible human attack. But as the victories piled up, Dr. Elena Foster made a disturbing discovery. "The Harvesters are not just retreating," she reported to General Stevens. "They are dying. Their adaptive systems are breaking down completely. The constant exposure to contradictory and impossible tactics is causing system-wide failures." General Stevens studied the reports from across the galaxy. Dead Harvester ships were floating in space, their crews apparently killed by their own adaptive mechanisms. "How many are dying?" he asked. "All of them," Elena replied. "Every Harvester that encounters human forces and survives long enough to adapt is eventually destroyed by the adaptation process itself. Their systems cannot handle the contradictions." Stevens was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communication system to address all human forces. "All commanders, this is General Stevens," he announced. "Prepare for the final phase. The enemy is gathering their remaining forces for a last stand at their home cluster. We are going to finish this." But even as he gave the order, Marcus Stevens felt a chill of uncertainty. The humans were winning, but their methods were so effective that they were not just defeating the harvesters, they were exterminating them. For the first time in his career, Stevens wondered if it was possible for humans to be too good at war. The Harvester home cluster was a sight that would have terrified any normal military force. Thousands of massive bioships surrounded a dying red star, their black metal surfaces gleaming in the crimson light. These were not just ships, they were living cities, each one larger than Earth's moon, containing billions of Harvester beings. Admiral Peter Jackson stood on the bridge of the human flagship Constitution, looking at the enemy formation through the main view screen. Peter was 55 years old with silver hair and scars on his hands from his years as a fighter pilot. He had been chosen to command the final battle because he was the most unpredictable human admiral in the fleet. Around the Constitution, the largest military force in galactic history waited for orders. Human ships formed the core of the fleet, but they were supported by every surviving alien vessel in the galaxy. Zephyrian battlecruisers, Fortani stealth ships, Keltharian fortress vessels, and dozens of other ship types from dozens of other species. Final fleet count, Peter said to his aide, Commander Lisa Wright. Lisa was a young woman with brown hair who had earned her rank by surviving more impossible battles than anyone else in the human navy. She had been studying the tactical display for hours. 2,400 human vessels, Lisa reported. 800 alien support ships, total crew, approximately 4 million beings. And the enemy? 15,000 Harvester bioships. Estimated population, over 1 trillion Harvester entities. Peter nodded calmly, as if facing impossible odds was just another day at work. All ships, this is Admiral Jackson, he announced over the fleet communication system. Today we end this war. Today we make sure that no Harvester will ever threaten the galaxy again. Major Scott Taylor was in charge of the ground assault forces aboard the troop transport Normandy. Scott was a student of military history who had memorized every famous battle speech ever given by human commanders. Soldiers, Scott announced to his troops, today we do not fight for territory or resources. We fight to ensure that our children never have to face this enemy. We fight to make sure that the word harvester becomes nothing but a scary story that parents tell to make their kids eat their vegetables. His soldiers laughed nervously. They knew that today's battle would be unlike anything that had ever happened before. Captain Angela Davis was piloting the experimental fighter ship Chaos Theory. Angela was known throughout the fleet for her ability to make tactical decisions based on her emotions rather than logic. Control, this is Chaos Theory, Angela said over the radio. I am feeling very angry today, with a slight touch of melancholy and a strange craving for chocolate. Please advise on appropriate battle tactics. Chaos Theory, implement emotional combat pattern. Angry melancholy with chocolate undertones, came the reply from Commander Lisa Wright. Copy that. Control. Beginning irrational attack sequence based on my current mood and dietary preferences. The battle began in a way that defied everything. The galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Admiral Jackson's opening move was to order his entire fleet to scatter in random directions while broadcasting Earth's most annoying popular music at maximum volume. 10,000 ships suddenly spread across the star system while playing songs that had been designed to get stuck in people's heads. The Harvester response was immediate and massive. Bioships began changing their configurations, trying to adapt to this new form of attack. Their computers worked frantically to analyze the tactical purpose of scattering randomly while playing irritating music. While the Harvesters were trying to understand the music, Major Scott Taylor led his ground forces in an assault on the largest bioship. But instead of using normal military tactics, Scott had decided to recreate famous battles from Earth history. First wave, advance like the ancient Greeks at Marathon, Scott ordered. Second wave, use Roman legion formation. Third wave, charge, like medieval knights. Fourth wave, fight like American cowboys in the Old West. His soldiers advanced on the Harvester bioship, using tactics that were thousands of years old, mixed together in ways that made no historical sense. Some carried spears and shields, while others used laser rifles. Some rode in armored vehicles, while others advanced on foot wearing ancient armor. The harvesters had never encountered anything like this mixture of ancient and modern warfare. Their adaptive systems tried to counter Greek phalanx formations, Roman shield walls, medieval cavalry charges, and cowboy gunfights all at the same time. Captain Angela Davis was having the most success of any pilot in the battle. Her emotional approach to combat was completely baffling the harvester defenses. "Control, I am now feeling nostalgic for my childhood pet hamster," Angela reported as she flew through a formation of enemy fighters. "Recommend tactical response?" "Implement hamster-inspired evasive maneuvers," Lisa Wright replied. "Run in circles, hide in small spaces, and occasionally stop to clean your whiskers." Angela began flying her fighter in tiny circles, hiding behind asteroids and occasionally stopping her ship completely to perform system checks. The harvester ships trying to track her became confused and started firing at each other. Dr. Benjamin Clark was observing the battle from his research vessel Discovery. Benjamin was humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, and what he was seeing amazed even him. "The harvesters are breaking down," he reported to Admiral Jackson. "Their adaptive systems are being overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of human tactics." On the main view screen of the Constitution, the harvester bioships were beginning to behave strangely. Some were spinning in place. Others were firing their weapons at empty space. A few had stopped moving entirely, as if their crews had simply given up trying to understand what was happening. "Their collective intelligence is fracturing," Dr. Clark continued. "They cannot share tactical information because there is no logical information to share. How do you tell your fellow harvesters that the enemy is attacking you with emotional fighter maneuvers and historical recreation warfare?" Admiral Jackson decided it was time for the final phase of the battle. "All ships." "This is Admiral Jackson," he announced. "Implement Operation Last Dance. Every ship chooses its own tactics based on whatever random criteria the captain finds interesting. There are no rules except that there are no rules." What followed was the most chaotic battle in the history of the galaxy. Captain Maria Gonzalez decided to fight her ship like she was conducting a symphony orchestra. Her weapons fired in rhythm with classical music, while her ship danced through space like a ballerina. Commander Kevin O'Brien based his tactics on his daughter's favorite fairy tale. His ship approached enemy targets like the Three Little Pigs, using different defensive strategies against the big bad wolf. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Williams fought her ground battle using tactics inspired by her grandmother's cooking recipes. Her troops advanced in formations based on ingredient lists and attacked enemy positions like they were preparing a complicated meal. The harvesters' collective intelligence, which had conquered galaxies and consumed civilizations for millions of years, simply could not process what it was experiencing. Ship after ship began shutting down as their crews succumbed to complete mental breakdown. "Admiral," Dr. Clark reported, "the harvesters are not just losing this battle, they are dying. Their entire species is experiencing simultaneous psychological collapse." Admiral Jackson watched as the massive bioships around the Red Star began to drift powerlessly through space. Some were beginning to break apart as their living systems failed. "How many will survive?" Jackson asked. "None," Dr. Clark replied quietly. "The exposure to pure human chaos has destroyed their ability to function as a species. They cannot adapt to something that cannot be understood." The battle ended not with explosions or surrender, but with silence. One by one, the great harvester bioships went dark. The trillion beings who had threatened to consume the galaxy simply stopped existing, victims of their own perfect adaptation systems. 3 days later, Ambassador Katie Miller stood before the reformed Galactic Council to deliver humanity's final report on the war. Katie was a diplomat who had spent years trying to convince other species that humans deserved respect. Today, she faced a council filled with beings who looked at humans with a mixture of gratitude and terror. "The harvester threat has been eliminated," Katie announced. "Every bioship has been destroyed. Every harvester entity is dead. The galaxy is safe." "How?" asked the Keltharian elder in a voice filled with wonder and fear. Katie looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who now understood what humans were capable of. "We fought them the only way humans know how to fight. She said. We made sure that no enemy would ever survive to threaten us again. Fleet Admiral Vextar, his pride now replaced by something approaching awe, asked the question that everyone was thinking. Will humans use these methods against other species? Katie was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a threatening smile. It was sad and tired. Humans only fight like this when we have to, she said, when our survival is threatened, when the existence of everything we care about is at stake. We hope we never have to fight like this again. But, as Katie spoke these words, she knew that every being in the galaxy would remember what had happened to the Harvesters. They would